Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're exploring the incredible story of Limitless. Eddie Morra is a messy and unemployed writer who's struggling to make progress on his book. His girlfriend Lindy breaks up with him because she's frustrated with his lack of success. While feeling down, he runs into his ex-brother-in-law, Vernon, whom he hasn't seen in a long time. Vernon gives Eddie a new drug that boosts brain power and hands him a business card before leaving. Eddie decides to take the pill and suddenly experiences a boost in mental clarity. On his way home, Eddie meets his landlord's wife in the stairwell, and thanks to the drug, he impresses her with his knowledge of legal studies. They end up working on her law school paper together and having sex. Back in his messy apartment, Eddie cleans up and starts writing his book with incredible speed and skill. The next day, he brings hundreds of printed pages to his editor, who is impressed. Eddie goes to see Vernon, who looks hurt, but won't say what happened. Vernon tells Eddie the name of the drug he gave him, called NZT-48, and asks him to do some tasks in return for more pills. When Eddie comes back to Vernon's place, he discovers that Vernon has been killed and the apartment is a mess. Scared, Eddie hides the drugs and money he found and calls the police. After they ask him some questions, they let him go. While talking to his ex-wife, Melissa, Eddie realizes that she doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. When Eddie returns home, he takes another pill and suddenly feels incredibly motivated. This boost in motivation inspires him to change his appearance and start learning new things at an astonishing pace. He impresses a stockbroker named Kevin Doyle so much that Kevin gives him his business card. Eddie's impressive change earns him an invitation to a fancy beach party where he wows everyone by bravely diving from a tall cliff. During this exciting experience, Eddie realizes that he wants to make big changes in his life. However, he understands that achieving these changes will require a lot of money. Eddie decides to try day trading to make more money quickly. The owner of a cafe introduces him to a Russian loan shark named Gennady. Gennady gives Eddie $100,000, but threatens him with harm if he doesn't pay it back. Eddie gets serious about trading stocks and quickly grows his brokerage account to $2 million. This catches the attention of job offers and reporters who want to know more about his success. Kevin Doyle helps Eddie arrange a meeting with a successful entrepreneur named Carl Van Loon. While having dinner, Lindy is impressed by Eddie's transformation, and they reconnect romantically. Eddie's picture appears in the newspaper as a mystery trader, attracting even more interest. They become aware of a man who seems to be watching them, making Eddie feel uncomfortable and sensing that something is not right during the night. Eddie and Carl Van Loon meet up at a restaurant. Eddie jokingly mentions medication as his secret to success and impresses Carl with his understanding of things. To test Eddie's abilities, Carl hands him a file containing details about various companies and asks him to analyze it. Eddie quickly figures out that a big merger is being planned. Afterward, Carl leaves Eddie in Chinatown and invites him for another meeting the following day. While walking, Eddie encounters a side effect of the NZT drug where he struggles to keep track of time. In a series of disconnected events, he recalls scenes from Bruce Lee movies and uses his newfound skills to defend himself against muggers in a subway station. Eventually, he finds himself in a bar where he makes new friends and spends time with a blonde woman. However, when he returns to his normal state after 18 hours, Eddie realizes that he has no memory of what occurred during that time. Furthermore, his supply of NZT is running low, and he struggles to understand the corporate files he decoded effortlessly before. At first, Eddie tries to cancel his meeting with Carl, but Kevin convinces him to follow through with it. During the meeting, Carl asks Eddie about Hank Atwood, a corporate rival who quickly gained success 2 years ago. However, Eddie notices a news report about the murder of a blonde woman in a hotel the day before. Feeling sick, he excuses himself and vomits outside, fearing that he may have been involved in the woman's death during his blackout. Afraid of the side effects of NZT, Eddie decides to search for other people who used the drug to learn more about its consequences. However, each phone call leads to dead ends, with users either dead or hospitalized. Coincidentally, he calls a number that happens to be the phone of a suspicious man wearing a tan coat sitting nearby in a park. Eddie quickly realizes the connection and escapes from the situation. Eddie meets up with his ex-wife, Melissa, who is going through a tough time because of her drug addiction. Melissa reveals that she tried NZT too, but she stopped taking it when she learned about the serious consequences and the deaths of other users from Vernon. Even though she hasn't taken the drug for 2 years, Melissa tells Eddie that she now struggles to focus for long periods of time, and her life is in a state of chaos. She advises Eddie to gradually reduce his use of NZT instead of quitting suddenly, as stopping all at once can be risky. Melissa walks away, clearly affected by her own personal struggles. The Russian loan shark, Gennady, tracks down Eddie and demands the money he owes. During their argument, Gennady discovers a dropped NZT pill and takes it, experiencing its effects. After Eddie gives back the $100,000, Gennady allows him to leave. Eddie, feeling sick and tired, goes to Lindy's office and confesses everything to her. He admits that he's become dependent on the drug and reveals that he hid his main stash of pills in her house. Lindy leaves Eddie, who is collapsed on the floor, and gets the bag of pills herself. However, while she's on her way back in a taxi, the man in the tan coat attacks her. In a desperate situation, Lindy takes one of the pills and manages to escape, getting assistance from a girl who is ice skating. Eddie and Lindy spend the night together, but the following morning, Lindy's mood changes. She becomes serious and distant. Lindy tells Eddie that she no longer wants anything to do with NZT, the drug he's been using. On the other hand, Eddie thinks he still needs more time with NZT to solve his problems. Unfortunately, Lindy decides to walk away from Eddie and their relationship. Gennady confronts Eddie again, this time demanding more pills. Afterwards, Eddie hires 2 bodyguards for protection. Later, Eddie has another meeting with Carl, who looks impressive and behaves confidently. Carl entrusts Eddie with the important task of overseeing a huge corporate takeover. Eddie has learned how to take the right amount of NZT, making sure to eat and avoid alcohol to avoid blacking out. He even gets a specially made suit with secret compartments to hide his pills. Additionally, Eddie hires a scientist to try and recreate the NZT formula within 6 months. While having a business lunch at a restaurant, Eddie notices a police detective who had investigated Vernon's death watching him. The detective shows Eddie a photo in the newspaper that connects him to the hotel where a blonde woman was murdered. Worried about the situation, Eddie hires a talented lawyer named Morris Brandt. Thankfully, Morris is able to protect Eddie by challenging the weak evidence against him. Meanwhile, the merger Eddie has been working on is moving forward and getting closer to completion. Eddie shares his intention to move on from this project, but Carl, recognizing Eddie's exceptional abilities, wants him to stay. Carl highlights the importance of competition and the need to evaluate competitors carefully. After finding his hotel room raided, Eddie purchases a highly secure condo for $8.5 million as a safe haven. While out on the street, he encounters the Russian once again, who demands 20 pills from Eddie. However, Eddie believes that he will have enough money to deal with the Russian because he's expecting a $40 million payment from the Atwood merger. But when Eddie goes to the office, he learns that Hank Atwood, an important person in the merger, is missing. Eddie and Carl meet with Hank's wife, who explains that he is in the hospital and the merger will move forward once he recovers. While Eddie is out on the street, he notices the limo driver for Mrs. Atwood, who is the same man in the tan coat. Eddie realizes that Hank is also using NZT and won't improve unless he has access to the drug. Eddie must go to the police station for an identification lineup, but his lawyer, Morris Brandt, manages to secure his release. Back at the office, Carl is very angry and thinks Eddie might have betrayed him because he believes Eddie has information about Hank's situation. In the restroom, Eddie realizes that his pills have been stolen. Shortly after, a box arrives with Eddie's name on it. Feeling anxious, Eddie takes the box quickly and leaves, leaving Carl frustrated. To his shock, Eddie discovers that the box contains the severed hands of his 2 bodyguards. While Eddie is in his highly secure condo, he watches television and sees Mrs. Atwood with her lawyer, who happens to be Morris Brandt. Eddie realizes that his hidden pills have ended up in their possession. Through the security cameras, Eddie notices the Russians approaching his condo and trying to break in using a chainsaw. Feeling trapped and desperate, Eddie considers ending his own life to avoid the painful torture they might inflict. However, he suddenly remembers the whereabouts of one last NZT pill. As he tries to get it, he accidentally loses the pill just as the Russians break into his room. Gennady, the Russian, injects himself with the last pill in liquid form and prepares to torment Eddie. Surprisingly, Eddie manages to turn the tables, overpowering and killing Gennady instead. The other two Russian thugs, who had been attempting to crack Eddie's safe, return to the room. Eddie fights back, using the abilities he gained from ingesting Gennedy's NZT-enriched blood. He blinds one attacker and ultimately ends up killing both of them in self-defense. At the hospital, Hank Atwood sadly passes away. Eddie realizes that although Brandt stole his pills, he didn't give them to Mr. Atwood. In the hospital waiting room, Eddie meets the man in the tan coat who helps him search through Brandt's safe. Inside, Eddie finds his packet of pills while the man in the tan coat keeps a close eye on Brandt, who is securely tied up and unable to speak. 12 months later, Eddie's book is successfully published, and he surprises everyone by running for the U.S. Senate in New York. One day in his campaign office, Carl pays Eddie an unexpected visit. At first, they seem friendly, but Carl hints that he knows Eddie's secret to success and has shut down the NZT lab. In return for future inside information, Carl offers Eddie an unlimited supply of NZT. However, Eddie confidently declares that he no longer needs the drug because its effects have become a permanent part of him. He pushes Carl away and stands up for his independence, relying on his own abilities instead. Later on, Eddie and Lindy are seen having a meal at a fancy Chinese restaurant. Eddie amazes everyone by confidently ordering his food in fluent Chinese. He notices Lindy's amused expression and jokingly asks her what she's thinking, pretending to be humble about his impressive language skills. Thanks for watching this summary of Limitless. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more exciting movie summaries. I would love to hear your suggestions and comments, so leave them down below. See you in our next video!